We are picking up on Yud Testament Aleph. We are on the last line. We were talking about the concept that you have to have a Megillah, that it should be a standalone and shouldn't be mixed together with the other Svarim. So we're up to the last line. Levi Bar Shmuel Havakar Kakari Kamed Rav Yehuda Megillah. Levi, who was reading with the Megillah, turning now to Yud Testament Beis. Haksuvim ben Haksuvim, that was written together again. So it wasn't a separate standalone Megillah. It was written together with all the other Megillahs. So Amr Lei, so he said to him, Hari Amr Hakroi Megillah Haksuva ben Haksuvim lo Yatsa. You can't do that because in order to read from Megillah, it has to be a standalone. It can't be something that's written amongst the other Megillahs, as we said last night, because if it is, and it just looks like you're learning Torah, it doesn't necessarily look like you're reading the Megillah, and the whole concept of Purim, the whole Indian of Purim is Persumi Anes. So if you're going to have it just reading, it looks like you're learning, and not you're doing it amongst other Megillahs. Amr Rav Chia bar Rav, Amr Rav Yochanan. Hakarei b'Megillah, Haksuvim and Haksuvim lo Yatsa, you're not Yotzei, Umachal Amucha, but right away, like they clarified what that meant. They immediately went back on their words, and they said, B'tzibur shanu. That's only talking about B'tzibur. So it means that if let's say you're reading at home and you know how to read the Megillah and you have all the Megillahs written in one thing and it's on a cloth, you can be Yotzei reading the Megillah from that. But if you're reading it for the Tzibur, then you have to have, that's just a standalone, because again, in the Tzibur, there's more of an Indian of Persumi Nisa, and then it has to be a separate standalone. And then just we're on this concept of like where they clarify something. The shir that you have, that at the top of the Sefer Torah, when they would stitch together the cloth, so there was a space that you're supposed to leave there, so that halacha, it's halacha Moshe Sinai, they're supposed to be doing that. And again, right away they stopped and they clarified what they meant. They said it's not halacha Moshe Sinai. It was really just a svara that in order to when you see when people do hagbon, they lift up the Sefer Torah. If it doesn't have on the cloth, it doesn't have any give, then we're afraid that chas v'shalom that it's going to tear. So therefore, you have a little bit of space at the top of the bottom, so that there's a little bit of give that you could have when you're. When you're rolling the Sefer Torah, that it doesn't get tied together too tight. That if you would have had that Moshe Rabbeinu and Eliyahu Navi both saw Hashem when they were standing in the cave. So if it would have been that there would have been even the space of the eye of a needle, if they would have been able to see that much of Hashem, then they wouldn't have been able to exist. They would not have been able to stand because of how magnificent it was. That no one was able to see me and live. I was just being Maver Sedra, and it says that Moshe stood face to face with Hashem, that he was able to talk to Hashem just like a person speaks to another person. I don't know what the answer is, but I was saying the same thing when I was doing it. It says that Moshe was able to speak Adaber, that he was able to speak to Hashem. So I don't know. So first of all, it's possible you could say something like that he would speak to Hashem, but he wasn't really seeing Hashem in front of him, that there still could have been some sort of partition.
That's what I understood the Gemara. The Gemara was, it's quoting.
Well, no, the Gemara, from what I understand, I think when I learned it says that like Hashem Kaviyach almost like put his hand up at the mouth of the cave, so that there was only like a little sliver, the amount of the eye of a needle that was coming through. So you're saying that's when Moshe would speak to Hashem, that's the way he always did it?
That's what the Gemara was saying here.
Here it's talking about there was an incident where Moshe Rabbeinu was in a cave with that, and he was talking to Hashem. But I don't know. This week's parsha actually it does kind of question what this is talking about, unless you say that there was some sort of partition there. And the last thing, just because we talk about the eye of a needle, what is it talking about? That everything that Hashem spoke to Moshe Rabbeinu on the mountain when he went up to Har Sinai. So that Hashem, when we thought that when Moshe Rabbeinu went up, again this week's parsha, that he went up to get the Aseres HaDibros, we thought he just went up to get the Aseres HaDibros. The pasuk is saying that Hashem showed him everything. It's all the diktukim of the Torah, the Dikdukei Sofrim, and everything that the Rabbanim were going to say, how you're supposed to darshan whenever there was a gam or there was an s, if there was an inclusion or an exclusion. Hashem taught him all of that. Umasha Asor from Asir L'Chadish, and also anything that was going to be done further on. Umaynihu Mikra Megillah, and that's what's that talking about? That's talking about Mikra Megillah. That's one of the things they were talking about. Again, was Mikra Megillah was one of the things that Hashem showed Moshe when he went up to Har Sinai that this was eventually going to be done. Okay, new Mishnah. So we kind of got a little bit off on a tangent, and now this Mishnah is going to go back now to talking about who is, because the last Mishnah was really belonged in the first parak when it was talking about When is the person supposed to read? If he's in one, if he's a kfar that's in the village, if he's a village that's in the city. It got off a little bit. It really belonged in the first paragraph. And Farshim say this is going back now to who's eligible to read the Megillah? Hakol ksherin likros as Megillah. Everyone is kosher. Everyone is able to read and be yotzei someone else in Mikra Megillah. Chutz mecher shot v'katan, except for a deaf person and again, the question is is it a deaf mute or a deaf person? So it has to be talking about someone that's just deaf and not deaf mute, because if not, they wouldn't be able to read it. A shota, someone that was insane or deranged, a katan and a katan, and the Gemara is going to explain what kind of katan we're talking about. Rabbi Yehuda machshir b'katan. Rabbi Yehuda says that if it's a katan that's reading, then it is going to be good. It will be a kosher reading. So the Gemara says, Man tana cheresh di'eved nami lo. Who is the tana that says that even b'di'eved that you're not able to have him read it? Rav Masna Rabbi Yossi. It's Rabbi Yossi. That where do we see that Rabbi Yossi says that b'di'eved that it's not going to be good? Also, it's not. If a person was reading Shema, but he didn't hear what he was saying, either that he was just saying it so quietly so that he wasn't able to hear it, so then he's still going to be Yotza, his Chiyuv to read Kriya Shema. But Rabbi Yossi Omer Lo Yotza, Rabbi Yossi says that he's not Yotza yet, so you see that Rashi says that even B'di'evid you see that reading Kriya Shema and not hearing it, it's not going to be good. So too, when we say now that a Cheresh who's reading it, it's not going to be good, that's going to Rabbi Yossi, who says that B'di'evid it's not going to be good also. The Gemara says, Rabbi Yossi, how do you know that it's Rabbi Yossi that says that we say that a cheresh udiyavinami lo, and that even b'diyavid, that a cheresh if he reads the Megillah, that it's not going to be good for you? Dilma Rabbi Yehuda, he maybe was going like Rabbi Yehuda. Ulechatchila hudulo ahadiyavid shaper dami. Maybe it's only chatchila Rabbi Yehuda saying that a cheresh can't read the Megillah, but b'di'evid if he did read it, maybe Rabbi Yehuda would say that if a cheresh read it, it would be good. So when it says lo sakadaitach, he can't say that. Why? Diktani cheresh dumi the shot of v'katan. Because when it said cheresh, it's also comparing it to shot of v'katan. And ma shot of v'katan di'evid nami lo. That just like if you have someone who's insane, or if you have a katan, that if they read it, it's also not going to be good. Even b'di'evid, their reading won't be good. Av cheresh di'evid nami lo. So too, when the cheresh is reading it, also too, it's going to be that his reading is not going to be good, even b'di'evid. So when I asked, wait a second, Dilma hakadisa v'hakadisa. What are you talking about? Maybe we're splitting it. Maybe we're talking about that one thing is talking about a deaf person, and really b'di'evid if he did it would be good, and a shot and a katan if they did it b'di'evid it would not be good. How do you know that you have to lump them together? So Gemara answers, "Miniktani safe," because we learned to the safe from the Mishnah. Rabbi Yehuda machshir b'katan. Rabbi Yehuda says that if a katan was reading, he says that it was kosher. So mechlal dereisha la Rabbi Yehuda, it implies that the Reisha was not Rabbi Yehuda. So therefore you see, because if it was the whole thing was Rabbi Yehuda, it wouldn't say in the Seifa, Rabbi Yehuda machshir b'katan. So it must be that Rabbi Yehuda is not the Tan of our Mishnah, who says that b'di'evid that he's not able to read. So Gemara says, Avadilma kul Rabbi Yehuda. Maybe the whole thing is Rabbi Yehuda. Gemara says, wait a second. Mi dami reishel psul of a sefer l'kshera. How can you say that? The Reisha said it's pasul. The sefer said it's kosher. So you can't say that Rabbi Yehuda said in the Reisha it's pasul, and then Rabbi Yehuda says in the sefer it's kosher. It doesn't make sense because they're saying the opposite. They're saying the opposite psak. So how are you going to answer that? So Gemara says, "V'dilma kul Rabbi Yehudi." Maybe the whole Mishnah is going on Rabbi Yehuda. Utrei gavni katan ktani law, and then the Mishnah is talking about there are two different types of minors that can be reading the Megillah, and what are they? And we have the chasurim mechzer v'hachiktani, and the Mishnah was missing part of the wording. This is really how you're supposed to read it. Megillah, that everyone is kosher to read the Megillah, except for someone that's a deaf person, or insane, or if he's a katan. But when do we say that if a katan's reading, that it's not going to be good? That's only talking about a katan that hasn't yet reached the level of chinuch, which they say that's like around 9-10 years old. Okay, before that they haven't reached the age of chinuch. After that they have reached the age of chinuch. Aval b'katan shegil chinuch, but when a katan reaches the age of chinuch, afilu l'chatchila, even the chatchila, the katan would be able to read and be motzi someone else in Mikra Megillah. Why? Rabbi Yehuda machshir b'katan, as the Mishnah just read, because Rabbi Yehuda is machshir by katan. So maybe we could say that the Mishnah, which says that someone who's a cheresh is only l'chatchila, but b'di'evid really maybe if a cheresh was reading it, it would be good, and we could say it's going like Rabbi Yehuda. So Gemara answers. So Gemara says no, because I'll ask you a question on that. But Mayukim, because what are you talking about? how do we just try to establish it? We tried to establish it that we're talking about that the Mishnah is going with Rabbi Yehuda, and we're saying Udiyevid, and he's saying that B'diyevid, that if he reads it, that it is going to be good. So if so, I'll ask you a question from another Mishnah, which it can't be going like Rabbi Yehuda, and it's going to show you why it can't be. Elahadetani Rabbi Yehuda, Braid Rabbi Shimon ben Pazi. Rabbi Yehuda says in the name of Rabbi Shimon ben Pazi. If you have a cherish that speaks but is not able to hear, Torim lechatchila. It says that lechatchila he's able to give truma. The truma is when you separate aside part of the field, and then they have to give truma on it. So there's a bracha that they would make when they would give the truma. So a cherish who's not right. So a cherish, this Mishnah says lechatchila, a cherish is able to separate truma, even though he's not going to be able to hear himself making the bracha when he's making it. So mani. So who is this Mishnah with the truma? Who's that going like? Rabbi Yehuda. If it's going like Rabbi Yehuda, we said the Eved in lechatchila though. That's only b'di Eved you could do it, but not lechatchila. And this Mishnah says that he could turn lechatchila. And Rabbi Yossi, if you're going to say that it's going like Rabbi Yossi, it can't be Di'evid Namilo, because Rabbi Yossi holds that even B'di'evid, it's not going to be good if they're going to be doing it. So Ve'elamai, so what are you going to say? Rabbi Yehuda, you're going to say it's going like Rabbi Yehuda. V'afchila, chatchila, and that even lechatchila we're going to say that you're able to say it because that you're going to say it's going like Rabbi Yehuda, and Rabbi Yehuda holds again arguing with Rabbi Yossi from the Shema, because we learned out Rabbi Yossi's halacha from Shema. He argues with Rabbi Yossi. Rabbi Yossi says if you didn't hear Shema, you're not Yossi, and Rabbi Yehuda is going to say lechatchila you will be good. If so, elahad Tanya. Lo yivarich adam birchas hamazon belibo, that a person when he's benching should not bench in his heart. So it means again not that he's not saying it all. It just means that he's moving his lips and he's not but no sound is coming out when he's saying it. So Mani, who's that going like? Lo Rabbi Yehuda, lo Rabbi Yossi. It's not going like Rabbi Yehuda or Rabbi Yossi, and I'll prove to you why it's not going like either of them. Rabbi Yehuda, if he's going to ask like Rabbi Yehuda, afilu lechatchila. Rabbi Yehuda says lechatchila you are able to do it. Even if you're not, because that's the same thing as Shema. Rabbi Yossi, and if it's going like Rabbi Yossi, afilu di'evid namilo, it says that di'evid you can't do it, and here it's mashma that you could do it di'evid. Turning to Chaf Amud Aleph, so Gemara says la'olam. Just because we're doing it fast, we'll go a little bit further just because it's right in the middle of the question. The Gemara says, "Olam Rabbi Yehuda v'afilu chatchila." We could say that the brayso, which is talking about truma, that says that a person can make a brach on truma, is going lechatchila, is going like Rabbi Yehuda. Below kasha, and it's not a question hadi day, hadi rabbi. That the first one that the Mishnah was talking about truma is going like Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda holds lechatchila, even if you can't hear, it's fine, it's not a problem. You could still make the bracha, even if he's not able to hear it. And hadi rabbi and the brayso, which says that if you're not able to hear benching, that it's only good b'di'evid, that's going like his Rebbe. The Tanya, that where do we see this? That his Rebbe holds different than Rabbi Yehuda. The Tanya, Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Mishum Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, Akare Shema Tzarach Sheyashmiya Lazna. That if someone is saying, again, he's saying in the name of his Rebbe, Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, that if someone is saying Shema, he has to be able to hear it. Shenamar Shema Yisrael Hashem Lokeinu Hashem Echad. What does that mean? Hashmel Aznecha Masha Atzmot B'Pichol. You have to hear in your ears that which you're taking out from your mouth. So that is Rabbi Yehuda saying in the name of his Rebbe, Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah. And Rabbi Meir Omer, Asher Anoch Mitzavcha Yom Alav Avecha. Rabbi Meir is the most lenient out of everyone. What does he say? It says Alav Avecha, Achar Kavanas Halev, Hein Dvarim. That as long as you're just thinking about what you want to be saying, he says that's going to be good enough. So now that we say that, Hashadas Tzlahachi, Afilu Tem Rabbi Yehuda, Karabi Sfirla, you could say that Rabbi Yehuda holds like his Rebbe, V'hadatani Yehuda, Braid Rabbi Shimon ben Pazi, Rameir. And when we said that Rabbi Yehuda was saying in the name of Shimon ben Pazi, that was going to Rameir, who says that lechatchila, you don't have to be able to have kavana, where you don't have to be listening to when you're saying it at all. So we could say that it was really going in the sheet of Rameir, who holds that lechatchila, you don't have to be hearing what you're saying, whether you're making the brach on truma, that when he gives the truma, it's not going to be a problem. And therefore, and then the Mishnah is going to Rabbi Yehuda, who says that only b'di'evid that a katan will be able to do it. We will stop here at the 2 dots, and we will pick up tomorrow night, and then